everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today's guest, you might already know him from my network, but we have Rob Young, who is from State Line Mobile Notary, and he's going to be talking about a lot of working with real estate investors, the mobile notary business, and just all things topics in general, especially about networking. So please help me welcome Rob to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for coming. This is exciting because people always see us together on
hmm
Casual Breakfast Club Flyer, right? Doing networking
Right.
events. And that's pretty much when they think of see Rob, they think of, oh, Casual Breakfast Club with Christina doing events. So it's nice that they can see you in this space where we're just talking about state line notary and all about your notary business. So can you just walk everyone through that about, your business in general?
I got the whole idea for
Mm-hmm.
becoming a notary and business because I got my own house refinanced in 2021,
Okay.
and time came to close, and I said, "Hey, what lawyer's office or title company do we need to go to?" And they're like, "No, we're sending somebody to you." So I said, "What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean?"
Yeah.
And the guy came to our house and sat around the kitchen table and notarized documents, and I sat there and probably took twice as long as I should have because I was
Mm-hmm.
asking him so many questions about what this
Yeah.
was. And at the time, I was very actively real estate investing. So I
Mhm.
said, I think this could help my real estate."
Yeah.
And just got into it, started investigating it, and realized that it was a legit business that I could turn into. So,
Yeah.
which really feeds into my personality of I really enjoy one-on-one conversations with people, and
Mhm.
not necessarily large crowds, but being able to
Yeah.
sit down and have conversations with people. So
Yeah.
that's how it
That's
started.
that's cool. I never knew that. So this
Yeah.
is relatively new because it's 2025. So you're talking
Right.
4 years now in your business.
So actually, I took about 8 months or so to investigate it. Took
Mhm.
my test in
Yeah.
April or May of 2022. Got commissioned. Didn't do a thing with it until early
Mhm.
2023, and then finally did my first loan that I notarized for
Yeah.
somebody. Messed it up, which was a big important learning
Oh,
lesson.
okay. So we can talk about that
Yeah, no, we can talk about
later.
that. And a lot of the best education comes with some pain involved with
I'm
it.
sure.
So
Yeah, like
messed that
anything.
up, and then started doing it, and just realized that I love doing it. I love having the
Yeah.
conversations with people, helping them close their loans and
Yeah.
sign their wills and stuff like that, whatever they need. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So this is really a couple years in the making, and
hmm
you definitely dominated the sector. And I mean, if anyone looked at your Google business page, they'd see there's hundreds of reviews, right? Hundreds for someone who's been in
150,
business.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's getting up
I was like,
there.
wow, hundreds of 5-star reviews. So it's actually amazing to see. Like you've only been doing it for a couple years, but you
hmm
studied it, you've learned about it, and you've already built or improve a brand about it.
Right.
So you fell in love with that aspect. And then now, we're real estate investors and you've been really tying in the two. So can you like walk us through that? Like just working with, investors specifically.
So working with investors is as a mobile notary is actually great because
Yeah.
when you get in front of the investors, they've read all the documents before. They
Yeah,
know
they know
exactly
what they're
what they're
looking
signing.
at.
And some of
Yeah.
them I can't move. I can't turn the pages fast enough for them to
Yeah.
sign.
Yes.
It's really good because when they've done it, they know
Mm-hmm.
what the documents say because they've bought and sold properties before.
Right. Right.
So it's great. It makes
Yeah.
it very easy to work with investors because
Mm-hmm.
they know what they're doing. They know what they need to sign,
Mm-hmm.
and they sign it. And sometimes those signings can take as little as 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes. So
Yeah. Yeah.
versus some folks, they like to read, it can take an hour or more. So
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I would say because I think maybe even a lot of real estate investors don't know that they can use a mobile notary to close opposed to going to the attorney's office.
Mhm.
So can you talk about that, like the benefits of an investor saying, "Hey, I'm going to use a mobile notary," opposed to attending closing?
So it depends on the state we're in because New
Okay.
York and New Jersey are different, but
Mm-hmm.
attorney states versus title states.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you get assigned to it, it's the comfort
Mm-hmm.
of your own home. It's sitting
Mm-hmm.
around your own kitchen table signing those documents as opposed to having to
Yeah.
go to a lawyer's office, title office.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So there's an element of it's efficient. I'm bringing all the
Mm-hmm.
documents with me. You're
Mm-hmm.
signing it, and then I'm scanning them in, and your
Mm-hmm.
part of the process is done. So it's really a flexibility of time.
Yeah.
It's efficient, especially for the investors,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then being able to just help people, and they're comfortable because they're in their own
Yes.
home. And I
Yeah.
come in and I make myself, sit around, try to make myself at ease with them
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
get them comfortable as possible, and we sign the docs. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
great.
exactly. And even we worked together on that, right? I called Rob like maybe 3 hours before. Like,
Yeah.
hey, can you come meet me in Rockland to close a deal for me? So, and you came with everything. This was like,
Yep.
I didn't even know it was closing that day. And this was for a house in Georgia. I'm in New York, and people would say it's impossible to find out you're going to close that day. You're not even in the state. There's no way that you can do a mail away. So, you came to me within hours with all the documents, everything, and we closed that day.
Hmm.
And I would say, on the investing side, it is super convenient, especially not having to do a mail away, to go to an attorney's office and
Right.
everything. Having you come here with everything ready, I'm like, all I have to do is sign. This is amazing.
That's why we do it. So
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
as quick and convenient as possible
Mhm.
for the people that have to sign, so that they can, you know,
Mhm.
we all have
Yeah.
a restriction of time, so no, we can't create any more
Exactly.
of it. So if they can go about their day and
Yeah.
get things done faster, I'm there to make it easier for them.
Yeah, no, and we can see that. So I want to ask too, because you're not only working with investors, but that I'm sure that's like a big bunch, especially with the networking that we do.
Hmm.
Are there any like if someone else is working with someone, is there any red flags investors should be looking out for?
So red flags for notaries are anybody that doesn't have the proper ID.
Mm,
And I will tell a quick story that
yeah.
I had somebody that called me up. They said they were an investor. They had
Mhm.
a power of attorney and a contract that they wanted somebody to sign. They didn't
Mhm.
send it to me till late in the day. I had a day full of signings.
Mhm.
It was like 6 o'clock at night. I think this was like last November. So it was
Yeah.
dark out. They needed a witness. So I brought a witness with me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we drove to this house. It was very dark and everything. We go there,
Mhm.
and it was all kind of arranged with the investor and the son of the lady that was signing. And she hadn't seen any
Mm.
of the documents. And
Oh boy.
and we started reading through the documents
Yeah.
because I'm not there to judge the documents. I'm
Yeah.
there to verify the ID and watch the
Verify
people
it.
sign. And it's not
Mhm.
for me to say, that this transaction shouldn't take place if they're showing
Yeah.
me the proper ID and everybody's a consenting adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless it's violating notarial law, in
Yeah.
which case that way I
Exactly.
say no.
Mhm.
Um, but it was very wide open. He had not
Mhm.
put proper prices on the documents. The address of the house wasn't on there, and
What?
she said, "No, I'm not signing that."
Yeah.
And we walked away from the table, and I was there just as a representative.
Yeah.
And he contacted me about a month later and said, "Oh, I had my lawyer review everything, and it's all good now," and sent
Yeah.
me a power of attorney that he had taken off the witness fields on. And for a
Yeah.
notary in New York, that has to be there.
Oh,
So I
right,
said
right, right.
no. I said,
Can't
you
do
know
that.
what? I said, you're not playing above board. I said, I go
Mhm.
find yourself somebody else, because
Yeah.
this is not
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
this
can't
is
work.
not the way to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to be above board and
Mhm.
have proper documentation. And he
Yeah.
didn't. So walked away from the business.
Ugh,
So that's definitely a
yeah.
red flag, as somebody that, does not have their documents in order,
Right, right.
and being able to present them, and know that
Yeah.
they're right.
Exactly. Especially for the woman that was, about to sign the documents, right? I mean, for anyone who's going into, whatever deal they're doing, being able to see and recognize and having a notary you could trust and say, hey, like this doesn't look right, because
Yeah.
maybe like, I'm sure she didn't really know everything, or, those red flags to look out for. So I think that's important.
So it was for a property. I think it was for a family property that was up in
Mm-hmm.
like the Buffalo area,
Mm-hmm.
and the power of attorney was so wide open
Yeah.
that it didn't list a specific address of the house. There's
Yeah.
rampant deed fraud in the real estate industry these days,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have very well lost her own house had
Oh
had
yeah, I'm
the
sure.
investor not been above board.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
something to
yeah.
watch out for. And
That's
and
scary.
as a notary, it's like, we're kind of out there dealing with this, that we have to make sure that the person signing is the person that's
Yes.
authorized to sign, and that
Yeah.
we've properly identified them. So
Yeah, because that could be a big, big no-no. Yeah.
very big.
Yeah, that is interesting. So those are some good things for people to look out for, to just be careful in this world in general, especially investors and people who may not be in the real estate business, to look out for. So it's good that you're kind of like highlighting those things. And I'm sure there are some people that make mistakes, right? Honest
Hmm.
mistakes, but then you have to tell the difference between an honest mistake and someone who's really just doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
Right.
and I this transaction I was not getting good feelings about, so I
Yeah.
just said, you know what, this is not proper. So I
Yeah.
walked away from it.
It's good. It's
So
good. It takes a lot, but you know what? It's not worth it.
no, it's
That's
not.
it. Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, let's hear about your mistakes. So when you were early on the business, right, doing things, you made a little hiccup, right?
my very first signing, I was
Yeah.
super nervous. I had gotten the documents the day before. You know, a lot of people become a notary and they
Mhm.
sign up to get text messages or whatever when their signing's available in their
Mhm.
area. And you look at them for almost a couple months and you're like, oh, is this the one? You know, and you get nervous and you don't want to press yes. And so
Yeah.
I finally jumped and I pressed yes and I got the assignment.
Yeah.
Went to the gentleman's house. He was so nice. And
Mhm.
it was for a Florida seller's package. He was selling a property that he had in Florida. And
Mhm.
Florida deed requires two witnesses on the deed.
Mhm.
Um, and so I went there. He had two friends there. We signed everything. I notarized, and it was my very first one. I was very nervous, and the
Mhm.
signing service that I had signed up with had
Yeah.
said, "Hey, send us back scans of the documents." And so
Mhm.
I did, and then I walked into FedEx and I dropped the package off.
Yeah.
And they did not say send them to us and wait to us for check them out. So that was my mistake, is that I sent them in too early,
Oh.
and I had missed
Oh,
a
before
stamp
you
on the deed.
mailed it.
So you know, the woman that owned the signing service called me up after that and said, "Hey, you missed
Ooh.
something," and I ran every red light in town trying to get back down to FedEx to try to
Oh
pull
my
that document
God.
out so I could stamp it. Didn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
Had to meet with the gentleman the next day and get his witness back, and we signed the document. I stamped it, and my
Yeah.
entire first commission from my first signing went towards refedexing that back
Refinancing,
down. But I said,
redoing everything.
education sometimes is a little
Wow.
painful, so I've
It is.
never made that mistake again.
I am sure you learned from that. Oh
Yes,
my, yeah. You know what? We all have to go through those hiccups, those
exactly.
experiences. I actually had a similar issue where I closed. George, like you said, every state has different rules, right? And
Mhm.
I believe is it New York? An attorney can be in a witness, but in Georgia, you need a witness and a notary or something like that, or
Typically, they don't want people involved in the documents to be
to be a
so
witness.
like
Yeah.
in Florida, I can be a witness on a deed because
Mm,
I'm not notarizing my own signature. I'm
okay.
notarizing somebody else's signature, the person who's transferring the deed.
Got it.
Um,
Right.
every state's different.
Yeah.
So some states
Mm-hmm.
like Maryland, they only require one witness, and it can be the notary. I can witness those
Right.
documents.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they all have a little bit of nuance to them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I learned that
yeah.
from so I closed in New York and for a Georgia property and like, well, you can't your attorney couldn't be your witness. So we sent out the documents and then we had to redo the closing
Yeah.
and do everything all over again. So like you said, something like that where you're not thinking about those things
Hmm.
and it could be easy to overlook, but we learned a lesson right away. So now I know that
Yes.
for anything in Georgia, I need to make sure that whoever's notarizing also has a witness. So
And I brought a witness
and
that day
you
they closed. I
did. She
brought my
was an
daughter.
amazing witness.
So
Yeah, that is good. So going back to with like real estate investing role because we do a lot of networking. It's insane. It's
yes.
insane how much networking we do. But how are you kind of leveraging all of those connections you make in real estate for your business?
So being with networking with real estate investors and
Mm-hmm.
letting them know what I do
Mm-hmm.
is something I didn't actually do actively until very recently. I'm starting to do more and more of it. I'm starting to see
Yeah.
more of the power.
Yeah.
I would advertise and network to attorneys and to title
Mm-hmm.
people, but I wasn't doing it to investors. And so now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing much more to investors, you can really get out there and if you have investors that are doing off-market deals that they're not involving
Mm-hmm.
your traditional real estate agent, title closing, stuff like
Right.
that,
Right.
you can really, or they have a strong connection with their title person. They say, "Hey, I
Mm-hmm.
want this notary. He's available. He can
Yeah.
come and do
Yeah.
the signing." So that's the kind of networking you can do,
Yeah.
and when you go to networking events and you find somebody that might be an investor, really to be able to give them, say, hey, you know what, it's the flexibility. I can come to you.
Mhm.
The only time you're available is 7 in the morning. We'll do it at 7 in the morning.
Mhm.
The only time you're available is 7 at night. We'll do it
Yeah.
then. We can bring the witnesses and do whatever we need to do. you can't get that level of flexibility sometimes when you're
Right.
going to other
Yeah.
places.
No,
So,
absolutely not.
especially like nights, weekends, stuff like this,
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
closed deals every day of the week.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that when you go to a title office or whatever.
Oh no. No.
They have more, a much more normal Monday
Yeah.
through Friday
Yeah.
schedule. So,
Right. And it's more like their schedule, right? Because we have crazy being real estate, your schedule is insane. So trying to one figure out two attorneys schedule to make up for it, and then our schedule and the seller or whoever is on the other
hmm
side, it can be tricky to actually get that exact time. And that's
very,
why yeah, and that's why I will never not go to a closing. I will only use a notary if I can. If I need to, I will. But it's just been so good having that flexibility,
yeah,
and I don't think a lot of people understand that they don't have to go to closing anymore. You can get,
yeah.
get a mobile notary and just handle your documents there.
It's amazing the amount of people
Hmm.
that had the same reaction that I did the first time somebody came to my house.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't know this existed. And I
Yeah.
said, yes, we are. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so
Exactly. And I didn't know until maybe a year ago. And I've been, I didn't know that you can do that. I always thought you always had to go to attorney until
yeah,
they made it more available. Like, no, you can actually do it this way. Even for Georgia being mail outs. I didn't know that I thought at first I had to close my attorney here and then do a mail. It's like, no, you can actually just get a notary and they'll take care
yeah.
of it. I'm like, oh, even
So,
better.
it's up to the flexibility of the
Hmm.
attorney and they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Some don't want to do it. They're
Hmm.
very strict about, they
Yeah.
want like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that. I've never done it before. They don't want to investigate it. Others, that's
Yeah.
all they do. So it's just,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
I get calls all the time from attorneys in
Hmm.
Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas
I'm
to say, hey,
sure.
I need a notary. Are you available?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Make myself
exactly.
available for that. So
Yeah, see, a notary and a one that invests in real estate that
yes,
understands the documents that they're signing.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about like your real estate investing journey because we met at a real estate investing meetup. So
Yes.
and this was what maybe 2 years ago now.
2022 might be coming up on 3.
Three. Oh wow, yeah, time flies. So yeah,
Yeah.
so about 3 years ago now,
Yeah.
we met at a networking event. So and we kind of got a gist of what you're doing. So can you talk about like your real estate investing journey?
So it's very, very funny. I will tell the story that usually I get left off is that
Mm-hmm.
I first thought about investing in real estate. I don't know if I should tell this or not.
Yeah, you should tell it.
My
We
wife
gotta
might
hear
kill me
it.
for this,
It's
but
too
no.
late. It's too late.
So, so we had we were doing some couples counseling, right? So it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
working on our marriage and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I've been married 25 years, so at the time it
Mm-hmm.
was very important to
Yeah,
keep that
totally
going. But this was
normal.
back in like 2018, something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
And it came up. It was something, because we wanted to purchase a property at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was in Vermont, just so that we could get away on
Okay.
the weekends and
Yeah.
camp and have kind of a space that we could call our own.
Yeah.
And the counselor said, well, how are you going to purchase that? I said, well, we got money saved up. And he's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you really need passive income. And I said, what's that?
Mm.
So he said, like real estate investing, being,
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I got in the car and I said, hey, I want to check that out.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's like, I'm not sure I want to be a landlord. And I said, well, I said,
Mm.
I think, just allow me a little flexibility here. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
we
yeah.
agreed upon it. And,
Yeah.
uh, and I started really deep diving in and
Yeah.
started going, the area I invested in is Pennsylvania, as you know.
Right. Yep, yep.
So, started driving out to Pennsylvania every week,
Mm-hmm.
um, and looking at properties out there. And then, found one and just, it was December of 2018. I became a landlord for the first time and
Yeah.
invested.
Wow.
Finally got
Bet.
my first property, and then I was hooked.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
then
like,
after
it's
that
like
it was
once you get that little nibble, it's like,
yes.
you just want it all.
Keep
So,
going. Mm-hmm.
and then, 6 years later, I'm still
Mm-hmm.
investing out there.
Yeah.
I've got I've bought and sold a bunch. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
most of the initial ones that I bought in my first year, I don't own anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
whether it was just some of them just appreciated, and I said I'd
Right.
be foolish
It's a
not
good
to
time
take
to
the money.
exit. Yeah, yeah.
And others, were not working out for one reason or another, so I sold
Mm-hmm.
them. And now I've got 3 properties. It's 9 doors total, but I'm looking to
Mm-hmm.
grow again.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I've spent the last several years fixing them up and
Mm-hmm.
got them all running really nicely. I've got good property management. I have
Mm-hmm.
not visited them in over a year and a half.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, and now I'm back in growing mode. So
Yeah.
time to
Nice.
start looking at them,
Looking.
looking at more properties and
Yeah.
acquiring.
Nice. So
Yes.
where are you looking to expand?
Still
Continuing
in
in
Pennsylvania, still in
Pennsylvania?
that area. I know it very well. I know the
Yeah.
towns that are good.
Mhm.
I've looked in other areas. I've looked in Georgia. I've looked in the
Mhm.
Carolinas.
Right.
And really, I think just I want to keep it as simple as possible. I'm very much
Yeah.
a proponent
Already
of just
know
keeping
it.
it as
Yeah.
simple as possible. So
Mhm.
I'm going to stick with that area until until I know something better comes up. So
Yeah, until something better. Okay.
exactly.
Right. And same assets class, just being in your multifamily, or you're looking at some
Small
different assets.
multifamily, twos, threes, fours is what I have right
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
That's I wouldn't mind something a little bit bigger.
Mhm.
I have a former property manager of mine. He said he told me he was selling a 4 unit that could be converted to a 5.
Yeah,
So
so
I said,
that's
well,
good.
let's talk.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, send
so
over those.
but that's the kind of asset
Mhm.
class that it's what I'm familiar with. I know it very
Mhm.
well, so I'm going to stick with it.
Right, easier to stick with it.
Yeah.
That is cool. So you told my wife, okay, I'm just gonna start doing real estate investing, right? From our counselor that brought up this idea, and
Hmm.
I'm just gonna do it. And how was there like a lot more buy-in for that? Because like me, I think maybe there are some couples who one person has the idea and the other one may not. Luckily, me and my fiance, we are on the same page, but there's some people they may, think they're crazy. So was there some battles that you had to go through
There
to?
was there was some hesitation. There was a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of resistance. We got through it. It's really because we're my wife and I are 50-50 partners on the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
So she co-signs all the loans,
Right.
but she lets me run with it. And it's really we went out there, we looked at some properties, we looked at a
Mhm.
couple properties together, but mostly it was me taking a look at them and then bringing her in.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, she's comfortable with it now.
Yeah.
We've got the properties. I've kind of, my philosophy
Mhm.
about buying has changed since I was buying
Yeah.
properties that were like in pretty good shape and putting a
Yeah.
tenant in right away.
Right.
And I said,
Right.
everything works.
Mhm.
And then I started, realizing this stuff was getting broken and stuff like that. So I started,
Yeah.
every time a unit would turn over, I would go through and make it more what I wanted. I'd
Okay.
change out the flooring. I'd get
Updating
better
some
cabinets, to
things.
redo the
Yeah.
bathroom if it needed it, and upgrade the property so that it was much more comfortable,
Right.
and in good shape. And
Yeah.
that way, that way I can not only sleep at night with my conscience that I'm providing a good quality
Yes.
product to somebody that needs it
Yes.
at a pretty good price. I don't try to
Go
go to the top of the
crazy.
market or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, and that way I can sleep at night and still
Yeah.
be an investor and make money. So
Exactly. Oh, I love that you touched on that because there are some slumlords out there. And the fact that you said providing a good quality product to someone is
yeah,
just wow. And that's kind of how I look at, my investments too. It's like providing something quality, updated, nice, where people would want to live there and
right.
treating them as such. Like treat them as my customers or, my
Hmm.
residents, not tenants. So what made you think that way? Because I think there's some people that are just like do bare minimum, don't do anything fancy,
Yeah,
treat them at a distance and make sure you try to get as high as possible. So
yeah.
what made you have that mindset?
It was partially self-preservation. It was, I think,
Mm-hmm.
if I tenant proof these a little bit more, maybe I'll have
Yeah.
a better thing. But then I was also
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? Like, I don't want to look at the 30-year-old cabinets and the 30-year-old
Yeah.
linoleum and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
even as clean, it might be clean and serviceable and stuff
Yeah.
like that. The very first, I didn't actually upgrade it because it was actually in really good shape. But the very first
Mm-hmm.
property that I bought had this kitchen. It was like straight out of the 70s. It
Oh
had like the
man.
yellow linoleum, uh, and
Oh.
the countertops were like original to the era,
Oh
and it was
God.
just it was
It's
kind of
terrible
cute.
to
It was
look
almost
at.
cute and charming, but
Yeah.
it was just like And then when I started
Gotta
moving
go.
into, I actually sold that one before I started doing this, but then I got it. I'm like, you know what?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
had a tenant. I had a tenant move out, and the house was. They'd
Mm-hmm.
lived there for a very long time, and
Mm-hmm.
they were smokers. So I said, all
Yeah.
right, well, there's a lot of stuff I need to pull out. So all the carpeting went, and I
Mm-hmm.
treated all the walls and got it. And I said, you know what? What if I made this really nice?
Yeah. What
I
if
said,
I brought it up a little bit?
redid all the floors in the house, got brand new. I tend to go
Mm-hmm.
LVP just because it's very
Yes.
easy to clean and
Super
indestructible
easy.
and waterproof.
Yep.
And then added bathrooms on the downstairs. It was a
Mhm.
duplex that I have side by side. So I added a bathroom downstairs, and when the other side became open, I added the same bathroom on the other side and made
Nice.
it nicer. And
Right.
got the whole thing painted, added new flooring, carpeting,
Mhm.
etc., like that, and just tried to
Mhm.
really upgrade it. And it's paid off because I've been able to raise the rent significantly.
Right.
They're almost double from what I went from when I
Really?
started a few years ago, and
Awesome.
um, and it really just makes me a lot of money. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, so that's a good, but it's a
but
win-win.
it's a happy tenants, and they're
Yes.
treating the place nicely, and I've
Mhm.
barely had to do any work to it since then. So
Awesome. So
yeah,
that's good. So and that's going back to providing a good product to someone, right?
that's the one of the most important things is I want to make
Yeah.
sure I don't want to be responsible for somebody hurting themselves. I don't want to be
Mhm.
responsible for because I'm a human being, and that would weigh on
Yeah.
my conscience that if somebody
Yeah.
if I can take a step to make that a better environment, and a safer environment, then
Mhm.
that's what I'll do.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And provide that. That is so huge. And I'm even trying to encourage people to do that more, especially with their investments. It's just like, let's take our time and figure out what we want to do exactly and how we're going to provide a good service, like how we're going to stand out. Especially like if we're hitting markets, sometimes we might be in competition with other investors, right? We,
right.
we need to get our houses rented. But what are you doing differently to kind of do, like how are you marketing differently? What kind of service are you providing your things? So I think it's so important, especially for the real estate investors. We're going down this rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but to kind of have that mindset like that. So
Right.
I love that you mentioned that.
I love it. I love
Hmm.
that you refer to them as your customers. That's just
Yeah.
like that brings up.
Hmm.
It's treating people the way you want to be treated
Yeah.
is very important. So I try to
Yeah.
treat them. I meet them where they're at,
Yeah. Exactly.
and try to provide the best quality product that I can.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's huge. I love that. I
yes,
love that. So that's awesome. So you're definitely looking to expand more again in Pennsylvania. I want to touch a little bit on creative because we are both in the subject to group. We have a little
hmm
creative. Have you been exploring more creative routes? And I also wanted to know as well, like from a notary standpoint, have you been exposed to more documents or just transactions that you had to notarize that are creative?
So I've had I think exactly one subject to um, closing.
Mm-hmm.
It was very interesting, very quick. It was an
Mm-hmm.
investor who was also in sub two,
Mm-hmm.
and he was familiar with the title company. Took a long time to get the documents out because I think that they were still trying to understand everything that they needed
Yeah.
to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but as an investor, I tried to. I'm looking to do more
Mm-hmm.
creative.
Yes. Yeah.
Just coming up with the money for the down payments and stuff like that is kind of a pain.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to come out and talk to somebody and say, hey, what if we work it this way? You're going to
Right.
get this kind of money up front,
Yeah.
and be able to make more money on the back end because you're going to be the bank.
Exactly.
So I haven't had luck with it yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm working towards it. So
Nice. Yeah, we're gonna 2025 is gonna be a good year
yes,
to work towards that. And it's good, like you said, putting 20% down for every single house that you buy is just
yeah,
like I mean, it's sustainable if you have millions of dollars, but for people like me and you who are just like, okay, you don't want to have to save again to do that. So that's why we think of these strategies to
right,
to
yeah.
acquire more with keeping some of our cash. So
Exactly. And, I
yeah.
mean, like, I will say when I started in Pennsylvania in 2019, I mean, the first house I bought was $48,000.
Yeah. Oh my
Second one was
God.
twenty eight
Can we go
thousand
back
dollars,
there?
and the third one was $47,000.
Oh my God.
I still own that third one,
Wow.
and it's now worth probably about $200,000. So
Yeah.
in 6 years, it's almost
Yes.
quadrupled
It's
in value.
quadrupled its value. Wow.
So it's but
Yeah.
again, that quadrupling also now having to put 20 to 25% down means you're putting a lot
Right.
more cash out there. So
Exactly.
getting creative really is going to help you with
Mhm.
the down payment, and be
Yeah.
able to whether it's stretching out the payments, getting a lower rate
Mhm.
or whatever, is
Mhm.
really going to be able to help you.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And I want to say too for the people who are in the creative space, like having a notary, an attorney, or even if you don't need an attorney, right, or just a title company and a notary that is familiar with creative, is familiar with investing. So that way, it's not like, what am I looking at? Like, what is this, right? You're
yeah.
kind of keeping up with the changing times.
Yeah, I can't,
Hmm.
it's as a notary, I can't offer them any level of legal advice towards the
Right.
documents. I
Right.
always specifically say that when they ask me,
Hmm.
"Hey, what do you think of this?
You
The
can't
loan, the
say,
rate, anything." I
yeah.
said,
Yeah.
it's great." I said, but I
Yes.
said, "I'm not an attorney. I can't play one on TV."
Right.
I said, "This is this
Exactly.
is what you
Yeah.
have is what you have. There's so many
Right. So
factors
you
that go
need
into
to.
that. So,
Yeah.
but I would love to do more creative deals.
Yes.
From a notary standpoint, helping other
Mm-hmm.
investors do them, but also from obviously a real estate investor
Right.
standpoint, doing them myself. So,
Yeah, that'll be awesome. That's coming for 2025. That's
yes,
awesome. Well, I have
absolutely.
one last surprise question for you. Let's see.
How do you build and maintain your professional relationships?
It's a good one
Um,
for you since you network a lot.
yes, it's so funny.
Mhm.
I'm in three breakfast networking groups,
Oh,
and
that's
when
cool.
and then there's some weeks where there's evening ones too. So it's like by
That's
Friday
a lot.
I'm networked out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
building and maintaining them is having those relationships, supporting people, and having
Yeah.
those conversations, and not just have it be, hey, how's business today? It's, hey, how's your
Yeah.
family?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And finding out, what they're doing. Maybe they need something. Maybe they, they have somebody that's in their family that's sick, and if you can help them out that way.
Mhm.
So, really being a person first, and putting, once you get to know them, and putting that, sometimes, maintaining the professional relationship is just, but
Mhm.
you can be a person first,
Right, to be
and address
human.
them and help them out there. I I start networking, I start talking about my family, I start talking about my
Mhm.
kids, and what they're doing. And I love it when people will tell me that back. So,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
that's great, is developing those, taking it from professional relationships to friendship.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Oh,
what,
that's
that's to
awesome.
me, that's the
Mhm.
best part of it.
That is it. That's
So,
good. That's a good way to like you said, not just business, building real relationships is just like
yes.
having authenticity and then business will eventually follow behind it.
Yes,
Right. So it's
you know what?
good.
I can't be anything but authentic.
Yeah.
It takes too much effort. So
It takes too much effort. Exactly. Just be you. That's
this is
good.
what you get. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, can you just tell them where they can find more about you?
you can find me on Instagram at State Line Notary, or you go to my website, statelinenotary.com.
Mhm.
If you are in need of a mobile notary in
Yes.
Lower Hudson Valley or Northern New Jersey, I'd be happy to help you there.
Yeah.
And yeah, give us a shout. We're happy to help you with any of your deals, or estate planning, anything like that, general notary work, online
Yes.
notarization as well. So
Hmm.
anything we can help you with.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks,
All right.
Rob.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank you
much.
guys for tuning in. Don't forget to click the link to subscribe and follow Real Estate Done Right. And we'll see you guys next time.